So Leighton Johnson with the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership. I have the opportunity to sort of manage, coordinate, work with partners in a lot of this work. So it's been exciting to go from 2.5 years ago, April 2019, when the Lilly Endowment grant came through. And, I think we'll even say like, everyone, Brian Wiebe was chair of the Education Workforce Committee for the partnership, Regina, Scott Ford, everyone here, we were kind of figuring out like, what were we gonna do? How were we gonna put this together? We had a proposal, great project plans, designs, but, when the money actually came in and, it was, okay, we have the workforce board, here's the work they've been doing. We have the higher eds, here's the work they've been doing. Here's how we can coordinate and come together. It's really exciting to be at this stage now where we have people enrolled in the programs, we're partnering, we're collaborating. So really that leads into my first slide to really describe sort of the industry engagement model, the collaboration model here, how we're working together. A lot of this work, it's, the LIFT Network Apprenticeship Program, the Northern Indiana Workforce Board, the regional partnership, we're the co-leads on the project, but it's really a vast collaborative network throughout where we work with local economic development corporations. They do a lot of the front end industry engagement and then hand over companies to us. So a lot of work with Stephanie Cable with engaging industry, sort of when they have an interest in what are workforce initiatives and programs that we should be engaging. And Stephanie's been a quick study to sort of describe and define apprenticeship programs sort of at that higher level for companies. And then they hand them off to myself and the workforce board. And we then sort of shop the company through or describe the process. And then we have a playbook that talks through the phases that I'll share a bit about as well, but it'll define sort of roles and engagement points. But then, at that point, we then move companies through the assembly line over to Ivy Tech. And from Izza Jatala, director of apprenticeship on that team, and others on the Ivy Tech team, they then help them work through the related training instructions, some of the components that Daryl spoke to a little bit ago. So a very collaborative model. It's not one organization doing everything, and we're working through sort of economies of scale and coordination to move this through, but also build a sustainable model. And just a fun picture here, we have Dean Juan Lopez of the Ivy Tech Advanced Manufacturing Department and 2 apprentices from Hubble-Raco who are industrial maintenance mechanics apprentice within that program. And so he's showing them some of the new technology and training equipment at the Garitoni Advanced Manufacturing and Automation Center. So, it's great to see companies coming in, more interest coming in as we move a lot of this forward. So just brief level set, sort of what's our focus, what's our areas that we address. Scott referenced earlier, we're very much focused on advanced industries, manufacturing. The advanced manufacturing sector, employment sector as a whole, has seen ebbs and flows, peaking around 280,000 occupations in our region. And we've seen dips in recessions around 08, 09, and even recently during the pandemic. So as a whole, we're focused on advanced manufacturing and advanced industry sectors. And you'll see here the sort of health of that sector or employment in general. But then if we look at the advanced manufacturing sector here, this is where we have evidence dips around recessions in different periods. So, just thinking very generally, advanced manufacturing, it is declining as an employment sector. So as we look at that, what does that mean for apprenticeships? What does that mean for training? We can't just say all manufacturing jobs are good jobs or all manufacturing jobs pay well, because when you look at the nuance of that, certain occupations are declining, automation is impacting the sector and everything else. So, then it begs the question, what are the occupations that are actually increasing and positively being enabled by automation? And so those are the occupations that we've actually zeroed in on for the LIFT Network Apprenticeship Program. Those are maintenance mechanics, those are robotics technicians, maintenance technicians, et cetera. And then you look at some of those more legacy occupations like tool and die, sort of general welding and others that are showing decline that still employ currently, and companies are still looking for this talent, but largely, we've had many conversations about welding. And so can we begin to move employment towards robotic welding or robotic aided welding? And that more so aligns with Industry 4.0 and the shifts within the sector. So for many of the occupations that we're focusing our strategy around the LIFT Network Apprenticeship on, you'll see 8 to even 18% increases over the next 10 years within some of those occupations. So those are the ones that we zero in on, and from the occupations like assemblers, fabricators, and others, we still collaborate, and through the workforce board, they don't turn away any employers. So it's an intentional model that we can meet employers where they're at. And then for those that are ready to advance along, we have tools and resources to do that. So pictured on the screen, Braden, a 2019 Westview graduate. Westview's in Elkhart, Indiana, for anyone online. So Braden is a robotic technician apprentice at Jomar Manufacturing in Middlebury. So 3 apprentices are in the program at Jomar, 2 are Amish, and 1 is non-Amish, that's Braden. So if in Amish culture, you're not allowed to have your picture taken. So, you can ask Lisa, we tried to do a photo shoot there, and Chris was there, and it was kind of tough. But we ended up getting Braden and his CFO and a few others engaged. So, really great to see that sort of interaction and engagement. But what we're learning is through companies like Jomar Manufacturing, they're, to points earlier, they're looking to advance, automate. They received numerous grants and a recent grant from the Indiana Economic Development Corporation to purchase new robotic welding equipment. And so through this company, we connected with the Elkhart EDC, we connected with Dave Baer with the IEDC, and they made connections at Jomar and said, hey, they're buying new equipment, and we know they're going to need new training programs, and they've asked us about different training programs in the region. So we were able to connect with Jomar pretty quickly, just share the robotic technician apprenticeship training plan, and within 2-3 weeks, they were signed on, ready to go. So Lisa Greco, Director of Apprenticeships at Northern Indiana Workforce Board, she went in, and a team of Crystal Levi's case managers went in, got them all enrolled, signed up in DOL database, and we had the 3 apprentices running fairly quickly at Jomar. So, that was a great experience just with our first company coming through the program. And so, show a picture here, just I'm sort of describing sort of how the phases work for our program. So, through the Lift Network Apprenticeship Program, it's a registered apprenticeship model where through the Workforce Board and the partnership and other resources, we send in a team of people, mostly from the Workforce Board team, to go in and design programs to forecast, like, what are the needs of the company? What are your training needs? So we've broken that down into 6 steps. Step 1 is identifying the actual training need and designating which specific occupation for a company are you going to deploy training in. Second step is actually designing the training plan, which is the most intensive step. So at step 1, that's where the LEDOs and others come in, local economic development corporations, help us understand, what are they hearing from the companies. They bring that over to the partnership and the workforce board. Then we engage at the phase 2. We bring a team in from the workforce board to sit and talk with the company and further understand what is that training need, what are the specific competencies, equipment sets, tools, program language that's required for, say, a CNC machinist. And so, once we understand what that need is, what those competencies are, then we take the step to actually design the training plan, which is called an Appendix A, which are the on-the-job training competencies and everything else. And so once we determine that the actual training needs for the program, then within step 3, we establish a related training instruction agreement and plan. So in that step, that's where we bring it to an Ivy Tech or a Purdue Polytechnic or other partners, and they bring out the curriculum, whether it's from a technical certification program in industrial technology or the new smart manufacturing and robotics programs started at Ivy Tech and many of the colleges. At that step, they share the curriculum, they share their set programs of study, and have a conversation with the employer around, which of these courses, here are the, essential industry certifications. So Dean Lopez has shared through NIMS and AWS, American Welding Society, and others. There's a set of industry certifications that are delivered through programs like Ivy Tech's that then are shared with the company, and we have a better understanding of what's already being used by the company and what training competencies and certifications would they like to see come through the program. So then after that step, we move on to step 4, which is then the fun part of recruitment within the company. So at Hubbell Rayco, they're a union company. They sent out a big mass email to 150 employees and said, hey, we have this new apprenticeship program. Who's interested? Here's the focus. Here's the duration of it. And so about, I think, 7 or 8 initial workers reached out, and then about 4 actually moved through, took the pre-assessments, and actually enrolled as apprentice within the program. So we have 4 within maintenance and machine tool, and that training is all being delivered at Ivy Tech specifically. And then within phase 5 is the actual launch of the program. So I think when we first started designing this, we didn't spend as much time on steps 5 and 6 because we were thinking more of how do we get this off the ground? How do we get it running? But the actual most critical steps are 5 and 6, because at that point, that's where you set up what Crystal calls a success management plan for the program, where we have Northern Indiana Workforce Board case managers actually working with the employer, that's my mark, actually working with the employer to understand on a monthly or quarterly basis, how often are the coordinators connecting with the company, working with them, and then how are we troubleshooting any forthcoming issues, how are we managing success? If a apprentice have a certification exam or a final exam coming up, the NIB case manager is working with the HR coordinator at that company to say, hey, let's not schedule them for 65 hours or 60 hours of overtime. If they need to spend time after work or during work, freshening up, studying for their exams and tests. So different things like that. There's sort of a success plan to roadmap and help. And then other post-secondary institutions also have success coaches and more. So there's a coordination method that goes into steps 5 and 6. And so that's, where we think we're going to see a lot of our success is really the retention and supporting apprentice and companies and making sure they have some of the resources that they need. And so with that, one thing that we'll release post this event sometime tomorrow is an apprenticeship playbook. So we've broken down all of these phases and all of these steps and how everything works from phases 1 to 6, and even some contextual information, just background information around apprenticeship programs. So we designed this in very lay terms, as far as if I'm an HR coordinator, director at a company, what are apprenticeships? What does this mean? How much actual time does this take for me to design a program, start a program? So we've worked with the Workforce Board to build this playbook. And a lot of it, you'll see, various, ranging from each phase, we have checklists, descriptions, background information, helpful templates, context. So, this will be a version 1 that we release. And then as we evolve the program, move on, we're going to learn, companies are going to learn, post-secondary institutions will learn. So as we learn, we'll build and further modify the training or the playbook so that, all of the new information we're learning or lessons learned are being built into the playbook so that other further mistakes aren't made in the future. And so with that, happy to take 1 or 2 questions. I know we want to move into the next section, but just wanted to share a bit about, what is the Lift Network Apprenticeship Program? How does it work? What's our collaborative model? And happy to take any questions. All right.
You have to say it into the microphone.
Yeah, it was fun to design, lots of lessons learned.
Yes.
One of the things that was highlighted was the importance of oftentimes educating the parents. Will that book also be in Spanish?
No, so the audience for the book is HR representatives of companies, but thinking through what types of resources can we build for apprentice. I mean, that's something I think we've heard from Masterbuilt. You're going to hear from Rob from Masterbuilt a little bit, but we've heard from his team, messaging to our workers, our employees. We've heard from other employers messaging to the ELL population. So those are resources we've talked about adding in the playbook as far as appendice information for how to market, how to communicate this program to your workers, to your communities, et cetera. So that's on the radar to have translated information, but not currently in the current version. So this is V1, and so maybe that'll come up in V2 or V3.
And this is soft copy and hard copy that's available?
Yes, so the book itself can be hard copy, but we'll release it digitally just to have quick access, and then it'll be a hard copy book. But the audience, again, for that would be HR, but then we're open to developing resources for community and outreach and communicating the program.
So just seeing the amazing effort and resource that went into all the work that you've done, stepping back and recognizing that we're trying to grow the number of apprenticeships to 400 in the next few years. It seems like the communication challenges, as you've highlighted, is with the employers. Do you think there's a relationship between their readiness for advanced manufacturing and automation and their willingness to invest in apprenticeships? Do you feel like, for example, they might not have what they think are apprenticeship worthy opportunities? Or what do you think is a primary gate that might be stalling our efforts or potentially slowing them as we look forward?
Yeah, so like what's the bottleneck or what's the potential hurdle with industry? So we have a question similar to that for the employer panel, but I think what we've seen from the field is a lot of companies are, more advanced than we thought or could imagine, and many are just averse from promoting everything they're doing or promoting all of the new cutting edge technologies, resources, practices being deployed. So, I think on my end, the challenges around communicating a cohesive message, resources, programs, what do you actually need to do this? Because for employers, they're swimming in options. So, at any time, an employer can get 10 different program options. So I think from a communication standpoint, the biggest thing is us working through the collaborative networks of LEDOs, chambers, and others to have that cohesive message and to be on point with, this is what this program is, this is the focus, this is the target. So the Lift Apprenticeship program isn't everything for everyone, but it is the target to highlight or focus on those specific occupations, specific jobs. So just generally to answer your question, I think we need to do a better job as intermediaries of just zeroing in on what are the resources and how are we communicating those to employers? Because many of them are ready to do this work. They just need that cohesive, coordinated message coming to them. All right, well, let's take a 5-minute break. Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll move on to the employer roundtable.